Right, we're tightening up. That's right. No AC for you. Nope. I will I will call to order our, what is today, July 17th, 2025 special called City Council meeting to review our upcoming budget. First, thank you, John and Sydney. First item is citizen comment. I have no speaker cards. Is there anyone here who would like to make citizen comment and fill out a card after?
Sydney Allen.
Seeing none, I will move on to presentation item, which is presentation of a proclamation recognizing July 19th, 2025 as Parks and Recreation Day here in the city of Longview. I would like to invite up our Parks and Rec crew, and actually, council, if you guys wouldn't mind, I'd like to invite you guys up as well, since we're honoring all of our parks workers. I want you to come up. You can wear your hat if you want to. That's right. Wear your hat. Oh, I wear my hat then too. You got a hat in the bag. Come on up. Is that on? It is on. Thank you. Oh. Well, it is my honor today by proclamation to recognize today as Parks and Recreation Day in the city of Longview. The month of July, Parks and Rec systems are recognized nationally for being an integral part of many communities throughout our country. Here in the city of Longview, we are truly blessed to have a Parks and Recreation system that offers a variety of facilities and activities to help promote the health and wellness of our residents. Our Parks and Rec is fundamental to the overall physical and mental health of our community by promoting a more active lifestyle, whether through indoor facilities or by connecting with nature in one of our many parks and scenic trail systems. I do want to take a moment to just say I appreciate each and every one of you so much. Longview is so proud of our park system, of our 10 continuous miles of trail, all of our wonderful parks and amenities, and all of the improvements that we've had. And we've just recently launched our Healthy Initiative this last weekend. So we have a pool coming. We have so many exciting things that you guys are in charge of making happen. And it is what makes our residents of Longview market us, because they love living here because of the amenities that you provide. So thank you guys so much for all that you do. It is now by the authority vested in me that I proclaim today as Parks and Recreation Day in the city of Longview. Congratulations. And new logo's awesome. Thank you for the swag. Oh. Thank you guys for that. Next on our agenda is budget items, the presentation of the proposed 25-26 budget for the city of Longview. Mr. Roland McPhee, our city manager.
Thank you very much, Mayor, City Council. It's definitely a privilege to be sitting with you tonight to bring forth the budget proposal for the coming fiscal year. Like I said during the work session, and I think it's important to reiterate that, when we talk about budgets, we talk about numbers and dollars. But I truly want to talk about, when we talk about budgets, we're not talking about federal budgets that we don't all benefit from. We're not talking about state budgets that we may or may not necessarily benefit from. But we're talking about local government budget. And to me, we have a lot of servant leaders within our organization, and being a public servant is something that people have a purpose and a calling to do. And so while we're thinking about this, think about the budget in terms of the services and what we provide to our citizens, not just numbers on paper. It is actually, we are the government that actually touches everyone in this community, and everyone in this community depends on us to function and perform what their job is here. The next thing I will say is this budget's been a little bit different in the standpoint is there has been so much participation led by our departmental directors, who all of them are sitting in the chamber tonight. I will tell you that before I've talked about this as my budget presentation, but I want to say this budget presentation is a reflection of the leadership team and the management team. So on their behalf, I am pleased to present this budget on their behalf. And special thanks and shout out goes to several of the folks that were hit and miss during this budget time, as we've had lots of participation. I want to say Sean Hare jumped in the ring and filled in some roles. I appreciate him. Richard Yakeley has worked with me tirelessly over the last couple of days and the budget team to get this presentation to the form it is tonight. The presentation wasn't really finalized until late Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning. So this is the third time I've given this presentation. So y'all are the third time I've gone through this. The other thing that I would say is that this is a group effort. In particular, the budget team, Angela Walker, Angela Cohen, and Marianne Hagenbucher, who were with me every step of the way as we went through this and participated. So with that, we'll delve right in and talk about. We'll give a work session overview. Some of the things we talked about in the work session overview, there are many external costs that continue to increase. Costs of asphalt alone have skyrocketed. Costs of power, costs of maintenance. We've all been impacted in our personal lives and our budgets by the external costs and the increases on that, and we have kept those at bay as much as we could, but those pressures still continue to outpace some of our revenues. The leadership and the management team, and I'll call it the management team throughout the city worked extremely hard to reduce those funding requests by nearly $2 million from previous requests. So they did a lot of hard work to get this budget to the finish line. So the third thing is, if you'll remember from last year, we had a recurring theme last year. We needed to do something with employee pay to increase retention and recruitment, and weren't able to do something last year. And actually, this harkens back a little bit to the same story that we experienced last year and the same pressure points. But we have discussed a number of options to provide those pay adjustments that we can move forward with in a sustainable manner for our citizens to make sure we're on the right financial track for the coming fiscal years. So with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about our Longview workforce, and this has been a deep dive that's happened since our original work session, and I want to start by really quelling a couple of rumors that we have that have always surrounded our city. And one of the things that we all live and love Longview. There's a reason we chose to live here. There's a reason why I chose Longview as my home. It feels like a small town. We are a tight-knit community. We have connections among the people we live with and the people we work with and the people we serve. But understand that Longview is a big city. And so when we talk about big cities and we talk about cities in Texas, there are 1,225 incorporated cities in the state of Texas. We're the 51st largest city in the state of Texas. That means and translates to only 4% of the cities in Texas are larger than what we call home. And so I think that's an important part when we talk about things that we provide and things that we do for our residents. The other misconception, and I've heard it for a number of years, is obviously people talk about, well, the city's top-heavy. We have lots of managers and so we actually did some deep dive into statistics with the Bureau of Labor, and those Bureau of Labor statistics don't just span government. They span private sector and private entities. And what you will find in the private sector, in the private entities, and this is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, you'll find that management typically consists of about 16.5% of the workforce. I'm here to let you know that 7% of the workforce in the city of Longview is management and above. 93% of the workforce of the city of Longview are the people delivering those services to our citizens in a consistent and timely manner. So with that, I want to delve into a little bit, talk about pay raises, and the portion that we're talking about pay raises is really to focus on retention. And so I want to bring up a few statistics that actually thank Council for asking some difficult questions that I didn't have the answer to, that I went back and we had some research done. Over a quarter of our workforce has less than 2 years of experience. And so when we talk about 27% of the workforce having less than 2 years of experience with the city of Longview, why is that important? Well, number one, it's important because it takes us about 2 years to bring people up to speed to where they understand their job, they understand the responsibility, they understand they have the training necessary to do their job, and that would be for like the police department and the fire department, which is roughly 2/3 of the workforce or half the workforce. And so it really takes some time to bring people up to speed. We hire lots of entry-level positions because we want to train those people up. We want to retain them to be the future leaders of our community. And so that's a significant part of the workforce. Another significant amount of our workforce is 46% have less than 5 years of experience with the city, and their average age is 34. And so I want to challenge you to think back to when you were 34, when you were faced with 5 years of experience. One of the things that a lot of people do at 5 years of experience is we've trained you. You have a marketable skill. We've given you the tools, the training, or the education and the investment in you that you now have a marketable skill. At 34, you're much more mobile than you are when you're my age. It is much easier to pick up and move to a different community and test the marketplace and say, hey, what can we earn at other communities? And so I bring this up because I think it's important when we look at the overall staff that we have to recognize that half our staff is less than 5 years of experience, and we've invested a lot into these employees and keeping them trained. So when you look by employees by years of service, this graph shows you the number of employees and the years of service that they have. And so if you look, it's just assuming in a perfect organization you would have a straight line degradation to where people would be filling the roles and you'd have no drop off. But there's an amazing gap that happens at the City of Longview between 5 and 10 years. I will tell you, I don't believe this to be necessarily as we're the only city experiencing these things, but these are the ones that I can tell you we are experiencing. I would tell you between 5 and 10 years, we've had a lot of different changes, right? We've had COVID happen 5 years ago. There was a big shift in workforce 5 years ago. And then even before that and during that, there's been the great resignation where a lot of people said, we're leaving this career, we're getting out of public service, or we're changing careers, or we're just not going to work anymore. So there is a significant gap that we have. And so it is imperative that we maintain our marketability and retain those employees with pay. And so pay is not the only thing necessary to retain employees, and I will argue that. And I will tell you that culture is the reason lots of people stay. And culture and sense of purpose, as we've explored this idea, that's why people choose the City of Longview to work at. It's because of their sense of purpose for serving people. So let's go into what have we done for culture changes and for retention. And this has been a plan that Marianne and I sat in a coffee shop about 4 years ago, and we scratched it out, and we're talking with a distinguished city manager in the state and sharing our plans with what we plan to do. I will tell you we are on track for year 4, which year 4 is succession planning, which I think is something I've discussed with a few of you in the past. So the first step in that culture change was really to examine our core values. And who best to examine the core values than to engage the employees in what are our values? I knew what the values were when I was hired here, and we went through the core values and implementation of those because I was a part of the development of those. But one of the things as leaders is that you have to know to step back and let the employees steer where we are today and where we need to go, because these all are servants in their hearts. And so they came up with trustworthy, integrity, professionalism, and accountability. I will tell you that that was very validating, because only one of our values changed, which means the value and the culture, the base values and cultures within the city of Longview were established. We engaged 25% of the workforce in conversation across departmental lines. Everybody came to the table and shared their thoughts. Once that was brought forward, we brought it to a vote and did some additional training, and now we have our new values, and this is our temporary logo we've used for that. The first year that Mary Ann and I were on this journey with the city organization, we said, we really need to do a plan to start planning for managers, because I think I've alluded to some of you, as you move up in the organization, the bench gets called up to play the next level. And we knew we needed to start intentional work to start preparing those managers for their next role. So we opened a class. It was open to all employees throughout the city. Had over 30 applicants. 15 applicants were selected and went through a year-long training with subject matter experts on a number of issues about what it takes to be a manager, how you budget, how you monitor resources, how you lead people, how you implement accountability. And some of those people were indeed promoted into managers since that program. I do not think that's a mistake that was done. That's part of the intentional work you do to build your organization for the future. The other thing that we implemented was servant leadership, because a lot of times when you're in a management or a leadership position, you may think it's very easy to tell people what to do. That is the exact wrong approach. You have to be a servant to the people that are actually doing the work. You have to serve them and empower them to do the work and help them have the tools and responsibilities. So the entire management team was brought through and taken through servant leadership training. The other thing that's a significant, and this started just about 6 months ago, I believe, I may be off a little bit in my time frame, but we started challenge teams. And these challenge teams, there were things that we were struggling with last year, and those things are listed here. We needed to figure out a way to get the core values education out to our employees, and not only to the employees, but to the community, so they would know who we are and what our values are, so they can see when we're upholding those values, and when we're not, call us out, because these are the values of our organization, and we will hold them accountable for that. And so the next piece was mental health and wellness. We know that COVID took a toll. We know there's some other reasons we're losing people from the 5 to 10 year. We need to make sure we're keeping those people here, taking care of those employees while they're here, to make sure they stay here for a better Longview tomorrow. And then the last was the recruitment and retention team. We assembled these 3 teams from cross-departmental. There are policemen, firemen, public works, there's members of finance, there's members of housing, it's from all across the organization to share their unique perspectives. It's not just from management, it's from all the way from frontline workers all the way to managers, and the directors are only facilitating these conversations to help strategize how we implement them. And some great things are coming out of that. We just recently did a retention survey. In other words, why do you want to stay here? What are the things we can improve upon? And so that's part of the culture. Meals with Managers program, we started that day one. We picked 6 employees at random. Mary Ann and I buy their lunch, and that is on our dime. We visit with the employees. We say, what's going right? What's going wrong? Give us feedback. You're not going to get in trouble. Tell us things. We've actually implemented suggestions from employees by just having those conversations. And so this next step I alluded to earlier, succession planning, that's year 4. That's where we're at. That's where we're starting to talk about, hey, we've got to start doing the intentional work of developing the talent we have in-house to make sure they're ready to move to that next level. As a part of that, Richard Yakeley joined the city manager's office team to help increase internal communication, because a lot of times there was no there was no cross-reference between departments. When COVID happened, departments siloed and took care of their main mission, right? We have 11 different business units that are not always related. And so these are the things we're doing. So what I'm telling you is the proposed raises, while they may not close the gap all the way, what they do is they get us to a point where our culture can compete in recruiting and retaining employees. So in the work session, we talked about a 6.5% plus a $500 proposed raise adjustment to the salary. So that's not just a one-time stipend, that's an actual $500 adjustment. So if you make $50,000 and you got a $500, that would be an extra 1% to your salary. So what that does is that strategy helps your low-wage earners much more than it does your high-wage earners. The impact to the tax rate that we alluded to at the work session was 5 cents. I would tell you there's a lot of work that's gone into this since. We heard some feedback after the work session that, really 6.5%, 500, we really leans more towards the $1,000 across the board for employees. And so we reduced the proposed raises from 6.5% to 6% and added the $1,000 to be a more impact to those low wage earners. The other thing that we did is the impact to the tax rate. Thanks to Angela Cohen doing some forecasting based on our preliminary values, we believe the 2 cents that we may lose in fiscal year 27, that 2 cents will still be available to us for the fiscal year 27 budget. So in other words, we don't need to assess the 2 cents now for future revenue loss. We need to keep our eye on the ball and remember that we've got 2 cents that we may have to get called upon next year, but it's not something that we would do this year, because if we did it this year, that would be over taxation, right? We're not losing the revenue this year. So the other thing, so that brings us down to 3 cents if you just take away those 2 cents. We continued to chisel away because the message, as the office meme that was at the conclusion, it was a tough message to give. But we managed to whittle that down another 1/8 of a cent. So we got it down to about 2.3 cents as an increase on the tax rate, which is well within the voter approval rate. As I said before, this doesn't get us to the 95% of our market pay plan, which is what council's policy says, but it does get us within at least 10%, and in reducing that percentage increasing does increase those low wage earners. So the next question is the obvious question: what does that mean for the increase to an average tax rate, homeowner? As we stated last time, the average home value is $223,311. So if you took that 2.3 cents and applied it to an average value home, that would equate to about $4.28 per month, or $51 per year. So again, just always while we're doing that, just to make sure everyone keeps in mind, we do have the business personal property tax exemption that is coming to a vote in November that could potentially affect our FY27 revenues, and that's about the 2 pennies. So this brings us to our general fund revenue. Some interesting things to show at this. We talk about this every time. We've got property tax. You'll see interesting, $100,000. Property tax about 38%, sales tax about 31%, and the remainder is service fees and fines, as well as interfund transfers and special revenues and franchise fees, for a total proposal of $100,627,302. One of the things that I had said probably 2 years ago was that the way the legislature was moving was forcing us to become more reliant on sales tax. And for those of you that were in this room those few years ago, that was the plan. We were having an increase in sales tax at the time, and that's truly what was helping us balance our expenditures. But as you can see, if you look at the last 3 years of sales tax revenues, there are no longer any great bumps. They have leveled out. There's a great deal of uncertainty in the current marketplace. There's a great deal of uncertainty in expenditures, and that continues to be for the foreseeable future. So we're not anticipating that huge boom in sales tax that we may have seen in past years. So these charts really reflect that there's no sustainable or foreseeable increase that we're going to get from sales tax. So when we start talking about property tax rates, always a sensitive subject, and I appreciate that. I am a ratepayer or a taxpayer too to the city of Longview. If you look at when we have raised the tax rate in the past, so we stayed at $50.99 flat for a very long period of time. You can see in 2020 we went up to $55.89. That, as everyone up here is aware, was because of the 2018 bond issue, 2019 bond issue of $104 million that the voters passed overwhelmingly, and that was based on that millage that was required to carry that note based on a nickel. And the reason the nickel was chosen is because they programmed the projects out over a 6-year period. And so the debt issuance happened over 3 years. So that nickel, by assessing it early and allowing values to escalate, actually kept it at a nickel for payment. So it's a fiduciary tool to minimize the tax rate increase. If you look at the next time the tax rate was raised, if you remember in 2022, a vote was brought to the City of Longview voters to approve a $45 million pension bond for the fire pension fund, and we said it's going to require a 2-cent tax increase. And so the 2-cent tax increase was overwhelmingly approved, and so one would think, well, we got our approval for $57.89. However, due to the election being held in May, it did not count that way. It counted as a use of our incremental tax rate, and so $57.89, the next year they said, well, you can't grow your revenue by that much, in spite of the fact that you just borrowed money against that. So that's what forced us back down to the $56.19. And so you have seen that we have held steady at the $56.19, and in fact in 2024 did pay adjustments, and in 2025 did not. The 2026 proposed budget is awfully close to that $57.89 number. It is within 0.06 of a cent. And so I just draw your attention to that as this is a different trend than what has happened in the city of Longview in the past. And the reason it is a different trend is because they are changing the rules. The legislature is changing the rules that municipalities are able to assess taxes. And it is constraining our revenues, and that is the game that has been changed. It is not a change in philosophy. It is not a change in conservative budgeting. It is a change in the rules of the game. So if we go back to the property tax rate, the property tax rate proposed is a $58.49 total property tax rate. The no new revenue rate and voter approval rate, in spite of my insistence to try and calculate that before it's official, I was not able to get that even estimated, so it is still to be determined for the no new revenue rate and the voter approval rate, which will follow our official values, which we're expected to receive next week sometime. So back to a little bit of my commentary, I guess you could call it, or political commentary, we'll call it. It's important that our residents remember that we send twice as much revenue to the state through sales tax than we receive in property tax and sales tax combined. And so just think about that. Our property tax and sales tax combined is $93.1 million. The state sales tax that we collect and send to Austin is $195.6 million. So understand that we are receiving less than half of what we send to Austin. The other thing that I will note is that Texas, we talk about it and we're very proud of it, and I am very proud of it. We are the 8th largest economy in the world. Not the 8th largest state in the world, the 8th largest economy in the world if you broke us out. Texas ranks 47th out of 50 states in support of funding for municipal services. So Texas ranks 47th out of 50 for support of municipal services, 47th out of 50 states in the United States. So we'll move right forward and end the political commentary and go to general fund expenditures. This is how the expenditures are broken out. You can see police and fire take up 30 million each, give or take a little bit. You can see that public works is an 11.6 million. And then you can see the remaining support services, and parks is the other large one at 5. And so that's how the budget fleshes out. There aren't big things that jump out at you from year to year. All of these expenditures are pretty evenly distributed based on past years. So we talk about general fund highlights. Obviously, the biggest highlight is that 6% plus the employee raises. We did, for the first time since 2018, have to increase health fund premiums to employees with dependent coverage. I think in today's day and age where you have health care costs that are spiraling out of control, for the fact that a city self-insured funded health plan has not had to adjust rates to its participants in 7 years, a lot of credit goes to the people administering that plan since 2018, which were both Bonnie and Mary Ann. And so this really is a significant thing. It is a minimal increase to employees, yet it is an increase, and every dollar counts for those public servants. The other thing is something that we've discussed a number of times in the past, was begin charging those credit card fees back to the people that were taking advantage of them. And so if you think about maybe people that don't have credit cards, or people that deal in cash because that's their preferred method, what's happening is those people were subsidizing the people that are using those fees, right? And so it's been a trend recently. In fact, restaurants, local businesses have begun to charge that back, because in lieu of rising costs, that is one of the things that, if you want that convenience, the local government code or state statute allows us the ability to pass those fees back to the consumer using them. The other fee changes that are included that we'll discuss in more detail, and there will be memos about each one of these fee proposals in your budget books that we are still putting together for you to get to you tomorrow. We're talking about Longview Convention Complex. There's a memo that talks about why those fees are under where they should be and the reasons why, and I'll just say one word that was said to me, and I think it's, we undervalue that asset and limit what we can get there. The other thing is development services. We brought fees to you last year on development services. We did not make fee adjustments last year. We still believe those fees changes need to be addressed. And then Chief Grimes actually said, we're not going to change any of your fees, but we need to add one. He said, I need some time to review those fees before I make great changes to the city of Longview, and I respect him for doing that. But he said there's one fee that he believes needs to be implemented that could be impacting our response times and availability to our citizens, and so there will be a memo detailing those as well. So we move forward to what does that say with the general fund reserve balance. You can see from year to year, from 2025 to 2026, there is no significant movement in the general fund reserve balance. The only reason it moves a little bit is because when you have a 10% reserve policy and your budget goes up, that needs to move just a little bit to accommodate that. So when you're looking at that, but other than that, there's no one-time expenditures included in this budget. Believe the one-time expenditures, we've had lots of different topics talking about one-time expenditures, and the mayor believes those are best served in a separate conversation, not part of our annual operating budget, and I agree with that. So this budget does not have any of those things, and you will not find one-time expenditures in your budget books. So we'll move on a little bit to the utility funds, and if you remember last year, water and sewer rate increases, we kind of changed our philosophy for years. It had been our philosophy to try and delay, and then we would wind up with a large rate increase that would be significant to our homeowners or our businesses or our commercial entities. And so we are trying to make those incremental adjustments as we need to avoid those huge raises in rates and adjustment that impact families all at once. And again, and it's because I come from that world, the utility system is our largest asset. It's the biggest leverage we have to continue growth in our city, because we have the one thing that not all communities have, and that's substantial water availability and substantial sewer services and availability. And so we need to make sure we continue to reinvest in that and keep our rates relevant, to keep that infrastructure ready to go. So recommending the rate increase to water, but no change to wastewater. There's a little different approach in how we're detailing this. The rate increase is primarily due to increased labor costs associated with the proposed raise. So that is why the rates are happening. However, he wanted to mention that there are some significant increases that are due to raw water costs. So we have 3 raw water contracts. Those go up every other year, and they're staggered a little bit. There's one year that both go up, but they're staggered. So we're on 20 to 30-year contracts for raw water, and those adjustments are written into the contract to preserve our access to those water rights. The other thing, maintenance costs, obviously those have hit everybody hard, and then chemical costs and supply costs, that continues to escalate. So talk about what does that mean, and for the majority of our customers, it's a 5/8 inch meter minimum charge. That means a 21 cent per month base charge increase, and that means a 14 cents per 1,000 gallon increase over 2,000 gallons. And so I will remind everyone, we do a lot of things like, and everyone does this, we buy this bottle of water and we talk about this, but if you buy a gallon of bottled water at any of a convenience store or any of the grocery stores, it's going to cost you $6. And so when we think about the value of water, 14 additional cents on 1,000 gallons is the best deal we have going for water in our city. With that, we talk about a typical residential bill. We have a 6,000 gallon usage, which is a little bit higher than we based the bill estimates in past years, so it's a little bit worse of a case. Not everybody uses 6,000 gallons, but that's what this is based on. So for that, an individual using that, it would be about a 77 cent per month increase, which is equivalent to a 1.5% increase on the utility bill. Lastly, sanitation rate increase is due to 2 factors. 44% of the increase is due to increased labor costs. A colorful statement that Dwayne always tells me this is that sanitation is about 2 things. It's about people or equipment. And those are the things. If one of them's down, you're having a bad day. And the same is true with costs associated with that equipment and costs associated with that labor. So 44% of this increase is due to the increased labor costs, and 46% of the increase is due to that increased maintenance cost. And so the adjustment to the rate is a $1.01 per month adjustment to the rate, which is a 5.4% increase. This has been delayed for a couple of years through strategic delays intentionally, and then the commercial rate is a 5.5%, so just a little bit higher. So when you look at the general fund budget in totality, you look at the expenditures planned for FY 25-26 in accordance with the expenditures planned for FY 24-25, and you can see that overall, the total budget is $224,529,913 for last year, and this year's proposed is $224,253,290. And I think that concludes. We've got the budget calendar. That's the conclusion of my remarks. So good news, you've reached the end of listening to me talk, and that's the calendar we have for the coming budget work session.
Take a breath.
Thank you.
Appreciate your presentation. That's Clearly, a lot of work by all members of the team and our directors, and I just want to say we appreciate the very thorough presentation of that.
Thank you.
Are there questions or discussion for Roland at this time? It's like drinking from a water hose, I know. Yes, Mr. Allen?
The $1,000 one-time raise, is that over the pay period, or is that at one time?
It is a flat salary adjustment. So say someone makes, we'll just use round figures because I'm better with those on the fly. $50,000 a year employee, if the flat $1,000 raise would be we adjust his salary to 51,000.
51.
Right.
Right.
And so it'd be the 6% of 50,000 plus the $1,000 adjustment to an annual salary based on 52 weeks a year and 40 hours of work each week.
Good. Mr. Graham?
So question about that, one of the things, retention was one of the big things, and I liked it because I had actually written it down here when you talked about 2 years. I used to tell that to people we hired in the school system, till they come in. But if you build the culture, they become family a little bit more quicker. And that's where retention is important. Speaking of the retention, and you say the $1,000, I'm looking at, hey, how can we put the worm at the end of the line to keep people here throughout the year? Could that $1,000 be part of it at the front end of the year, and then maybe the majority of it at the end of the year towards Christmas time? Really help some people out during a seasonal cause or seasonal time, but at the same time, they've got something to look forward to, something that they're anticipating that they're working for. If that could be considered, that's something that I feel is kind of important. I've seen it in other places, and I know how people look forward to it. And I just like, that helps us at the same time. Everybody's getting a payday, a little extra money at that same time of year, and they're happy for that. So that's just something that I'd like to throw out. And when we get done, I got something for John, though. So.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Conley.
I'm not sure. Are we going to have discussion during tonight's session, or we save some of these questions for next?
Go for it.
No, I just want to add to something he mentioned, and just a possibility of, in schools, same situations happen with fund financing, similar to what you mentioned. Texas is great economy, but not funded very well for municipalities or schools. But retention bonuses, instead of maybe is that 1,000, looking at a retention bonus and as a way to keep people here. Some things that we sometimes do at school districts, and also recruiting, like signing bonuses.
We have used signing bonuses in the past. I will tell you that we are nearly at full staff with the police department. That's thanks to I believe the culture and the recruiting team over there, as well as the leadership. We are nearly at full staff. With the fire department, we had sign-on bonuses. 2 weeks from last Tuesday, fire will be fully staffed. And so, while I do think that there's a way, we'd have to change the word bonus. That makes Robert Ray extremely nervous because municipalities prohibited from giving bonuses. So we'd have to wordsmith that, but that's certainly something we can look into, absolutely.
Service contribution or whatever.
Sure. Whatever we can get him to buy off on.
You good? Do you have something else?
On the question,
Oh,
real quick on
hold on,
fire.
is Derek done? Are you done? Or do you have something else? Okay.
Just real quick, just a piggy on the fire. Are we looking at over hiring for fire, for overstaffing, so that way we work the retention as we discussed before, or is this based on just 100% employment?
This is
fire.
based on 100% employment. There's no overhiring. I did authorize some overhires during last fiscal year, which was included within our year-end estimates. And I think that is what may have assisted somewhat in closing the gap between the employees and the number of vacancies and their gap in employment. So it did help close that. The intention has been all along, we don't, and we do this throughout, we don't overstaff, right? We staff for what's required and have overtime, but we historically have never been able to staff that. It has always been the goal is to drive down those overtime costs and add additional people as we can. But with the constraints of the current budget and the constraints of how we've moved forward, we did not have the room to do that in this proposal.
Okay, because how long does it take for fire, somebody comes on to be trained in, 6 months?
No, it's
like 18.
11 months, I think, before they can put them on the truck.
So-
I'm looking at Chief Grimes. Is that about right, Chief?
So
Okay.
you're looking at 11 months, and then you can factor your churn, and you could figure out how much you actually need to be staffed above the 100% to make sure that help with that.
Right. When people take vacations, that's the other thing we have to think about when we talk about shift work folks and people that work those hard jobs and work for 48 hours or 24 hours, regardless, they're on a 48-hour shift. But when somebody is ill, it's not like Public Works where if somebody's sick for a day, we call in somebody for 8 hours overtime and they go home. When we call in somebody for fire overtime, it's 48 hours right out of the bat. And so those are some of the exacerbating factors that happen with fire in general is, number one, the public safety workforce is paid significantly more than the typical average city employee, and part of that's because of the training, the requirement, the responsibility, and their job itself, and how it compares with other pay. And so when you start talking overtime about some of the highest paid individuals, that's what reflects and exacerbates that number even further. But we are continuing to work on that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Did you have something? Go ahead.
Yes, I was trying to see, when was the last outside, professional pay study done?
I will let Mary Ann field this for the last outside professional pay.
So the last time we did a market pay plan, was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I believe.
And what firm did that? Did we do that in-house? What, I'm saying outside.
PSPC, Public Sector Personnel Consultants, is the company that we've used since 2008. And so whenever we do that, whenever we go back out, we always come to council, ask you guys to approve an expenditure to do that. So we bring them in.
Okay, so council have a copy of that last study? And then I was trying to see where we're at overtime to date.
Okay.
We can get you that.
Yes.
We've started including that in the monthly financials. I don't remember what the last monthly financial that went out was. I want to say it was June. So we hadn't finished July, but we can get that.
No, it was May.
It was May? Okay, so we still owe June right now, so we will get that to you. We're on track. I will tell you, we're within the range for the year-end estimate, if I'm remembering off the top of my head where we were at the year-end estimate. We're on track to be right within of what we budgeted. I mean, we might be a little over, we might be a little under, but we're right within what we budgeted this year.
What about this upcoming budget? Do you know offhand if that's gone down?
This upcoming budget, yes. I prepared a slide on this just in case we talked about this. And so FY '24 budget was $1485,245, and the proposed budget includes the raises. But if you take out the raises, I want to say the amount was $1250, $1.25 million. So we've actually we're showing a 15% reduction going into this next budget year from what was budgeted before as far as overtime hours.
Okay, so on this one right here, you're saying that we're at 1.4, but I know we got an email and it was more close to like 1.7, 1.8.
I have the Mayo. It's on the fire, it's for 24-25, total was 1.485 million.
Okay, but we did get an email that it wasn't that number, so. And so you're saying that we're gonna budget for 1.3 this year?
This coming year, yes, ma'am.
What, I know I've asked you this before and you've kind of told me there's not an answer. because I appreciate that there will always be some component of overtime, and I don't know how to get to the answer, but I'd like to know what we're shooting for. Like, I know we're not shooting for 0.
No.
So if we get to X, when do we declare, like, we did a good job? That would be really helpful, I think.
It would be. What I would tell you is that they don't always get to take the holiday they earn because we have minimum staffing. And so, life happens, and life happens at every one of these public servants here, every single one of them. We have children, we have to take care of our family, and many of those things are so hard to forecast. We can tell you what we've trended over the years and what's a reasonable average, but you will always have a number of family crisis, and I know I've said I can't get you that exact number, and you've asked me several times, and we've worked on it. That, in my opinion, the thing that will help lower that in time is adding additional positions to the payroll while we trend the overtime down so that we can have some flexibility in staffing. ISO ratings, and Chief Grimes can talk to you better about this, but I know that it's based on minimum staffings. It's based on how many people serve on each unit, what's your minimum staffing level, how many serve on each shift. There's some variability they have in that, but it does affect insurance ratings at the end of the day. So I believe hiring more folks and figuring out how to plug those in on a floating shift schedule is a cheaper option. When can we get there? I'm not real optimistic with the way the legislature's moved the games on revenue, so I will tell you that we will continue to work on that and focus on that.
One thing that you did tell me when I've asked about this in the past that was helpful to me was that if a firefighter has a family emergency or is sick, we have to bring someone in.
Yes.
They're responding to emergencies. If a public works individual is having a family emergency or is sick, we're just going to, be without them for the day and figure out that work. So
Yes.
that was helpful conceptually to me, that we don't have the option of being short-staffed. You said that in a fancier way, but it was helpful to me to look at it in
That
2
sounds
different
better
ways.
than the way I said it. I'm fine with that.
Mr. Conley's got a question.
Yeah, I just want to follow up a couple things from what Shannon brought up. So when you brought up, you said that you're projecting a 15% decrease in the budget for overtime. And I know last year at this time, when we were having these discussions, one of our big concerns was the fire department overtime.
Yes, sir.
That's the budget was so we budgeted overtime for 1.4, and you may not have these figures available right now, but I want to understand because our goal was a decrease, like the mayor mentioned, we want to obviously not just budget for this, but have a plan or how we're decreasing this time money. But can you tell us, have we had a decrease in 2025 in overtime for fire as of today compared to where we were last year at this time?
Yes, sir.
Do you know how much it is, or?
Do you have that figure?
The main
We-
financial report had it.
Yeah, it does.
We in the way Angela put those reportings is to show you where we tracked last year at that time to where we're tracking this year. And so we are making progress. And the largest contributor of overtime were the vacant staffing and the addition of frontline units before we had the staffing to fill it. And I know that was a council decision, and we did exactly what the council decided to do. No blame, no problem. We got the job done, and I'm thankful to the fire department doing that. But understand, bringing that additional online unit before we had the vacancies filled exacerbated the overtime problem.
I was on council then, that's why I was being diplomatic.
Right, I am.
Go ahead.
I have the number. So 23-24 fire overtime was 2,236,000, and then we did 1,485,000. So there was a drastic reduction.
So at this point, it's 1.4.
Well, I don't know about, this isn't based on, that's for the full budget. That was for the full budget.
What is
year.
our year-end estimate for fire overtime?
It is based on actuals in the report. We're down 381 at this point, at the end of May.
Okay.
And so
Thank
what's
you.
the number?
They're at $1.1 million at this point, at the end of May. Last year, they were at 1.5.
Thank you.
So we're at 1.1, but we're budgeting 1.3?
Yes, with the pay raises. So it's down 15%, but then you include the pay raise.
Okay, that's right.
Go ahead, Mr. Conley, sorry.
Okay, and this, we've had a lot of discussion about fire overtime, and I know we're doing better than ever as far as staffing in fire and in our police department. What's the comparison like with our overtime with the police department? Do we do we have a budget for overtime expectations on police?
There is a budget line item for overtime in police. I don't know exactly what that is.
I just want to see what a comparison would be on that.
Well, please get comp time too, right?
They do, and they have flexibility to adapt. They don't necessarily have minimum staffing level. There are some differences. They have some established staffing levels. They shoot for that, but they're a little more nimble in response to that than the fire insurance ratings and the way those work. And I would have to leave that to the experts to get in detail beyond that with you.
Their budgeted overtime in this budget is $430,000 for police.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
And just one other follow-up on what Ms. Moore asked. So you said we pay that professional pay agency, and we've had the same one since 2008. Could you repeat, what's the name of that agency we use?
Yes, sir. Public Sector Personnel Consultants is the company, and we have had them since 2008. But we only bring them in years that we do market pay assessments.
And the last time was 3 years ago?
I believe so, but I could be wrong on that. I will certainly email that out.
So so when you looked at the, as far as when we're looking at the 6%, we didn't consult them for that?
No, sir. We only consult them when we are looking at the full pay plan and going out and comparing to our survey cities. So when we are bringing forward percentage increases, we don't consult them for that.
Well, one of the things I'll add to that is that this pay plan has been a living document that we have maintained how it functions and how it works in-house. So we only benchmark the plan out, but we operate the plan the way it was designed and under the assumptions we were given, because there's lots of intricacies to it. So we keep the living document moving not as far as pay scale, but as far as the separation, the rules of how they set up the pay plan is maintained internally and has been maintained internally over those years until such times that we just benchmark the numbers, because the operability of the pay plan does not change, just the pay itself when we benchmark.
I think, well, you haven't yet. Go ahead.
I have about 2 or 3 questions, but on the overtime. So back in 23, 24, let me start even now with 25, 26. So we're at full capacity right now with our fire staff, correct, Chief Crimes? Yes. Okay.
2 weeks from Tuesday.
Okay, and then 24, 25, 23, 24, do you recall our capacity as far as staff?
We were in double-digit vacancies for a number of years, and
Right.
20s and in the teens that ring the bell for me.
Okay, so I understand that. All right, so moving on to my next question, which is totally different, but some clarity. You mentioned on our projected 25, 26 tax revenue, where Texas was 195.6 million, Longview contribution? I'm sorry, contribution to the state of Texas?
This is the
Yes.
sales tax we collect in the city of Longview and send to Austin.
Okay, 195.6 million.
And this
Okay.
is the sales tax plus the property tax that we get to retain.
Great. All right. And of that, you mentioned it's 47 in support of what as far as municipality services?
So the state of Texas supports municipal services 47th out of 50 states. So we're fourth from the bottom there. So
As far as
what the state gives
gives
to
to
us.
us.
Yes,
Okay. The state of Texas is.
yes, sir.
All right. Thank you for that clarity. My last question, actually, it's a couple of more here. Sorry, guys. That's what happens when you never get to speak up here, right? Back to our retention. So if we know that heading into year 5, that we're gonna lose some people that we train, I'm sure we're amping up our recruitment, of course, for people with that mid-level experience as well that are coming in, because I'm with you at this 2 to 5 year point. I think that's a national trend. I think everyone goes through that, right? So as soon as we're losing them to other companies, we have that interest as well as bringing them in, and I'm sure we could amp up our recruitment of those same people, correct?
Sure.
Great. Last question. Our sales tax, our state sales, or our city sales tax that you have on your pie chart here, the 31 million, correct?
Yes, sir.
Hotel, entertainment tax, is that included in that?
That is not. Those are restricted purpose taxes or collections, and those are a part of the hotel occupancy taxes, and someone else can speak to the exact details of that, but there are restrictions on those taxes for use for heads in beds or tourist opportunities or that type of thing. That's what those are restricted use for.
Okay. But we do have access to those numbers internally?
Yes, sir, and they're just not a part of the general fund explanation. They're a part of the expenditures on the other, and they'll be more fully detailed in the budget book that we provide
Perfect.
to you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, guys.
Coming back on this side. Go ahead, Mr. Berryhill.
You can thank Derek and Ray for this. So, first off, I think going to the full staff, we should see our overtime with the fire department drop down being full staffed alone. So that'll help us out with that number, which is good.
Yes, sir.
To know. Talking about overtime, I know, John and I have visited, I know we got guys working Parks and Recreation sometimes 6-7 days a week. We have crises that happen within the city, and we require city workers to work some overtime. What's our overtime look like with their budgets? I mean, have we seen it increase over the last couple of years? Has it kind of maintained? We kind of have a good plan for it? Because, I mean, I know we want to draw these tournaments into town. We can't help what God sends us when he provides us with a big storm that comes through that forces our crews out to, help clear trees and things off roadways and all like that. But is our overtime kind of stayed similar, or is it increased? What's it?
I don't recall, and so I'll just look out at John and Dwayne and I don't recall big spikes in overtime, and a lot of those folks, obviously Public Works, and then some of John's, it's 8-hour shifts or more, but John.
Our overtime, at least since I've been here and prior, has really stayed level. Of course, we're looking at ways to lower that too, so things that we've talked
You and I
about.
have talked about that, just so people understand it. One of the things, is it all right, or would you like to do it? Let's just talk about the lighting, and for example.
Yeah, so one of the ways that we're looking to try and lower our overtime costs for tournaments and field use is to automate our light system, automate our gates as well, so that then our staff aren't having to go out every night. They're not having to go out so early or late for tournaments. So we're looking to be able to automate some of that this year.
Right. And like I said, we want the tournaments coming to town. We want our city guys to be able to get out and do the job they need to do after a crisis. So I'm with that. Thank you, John. I didn't mean to drag you up for that, but I do want to tell you, John does a great job. I can tell you from experience, as his crew during the past, and I'm sorry, I'm off topic. If I need to get back on, let me know. But we run cross-country meets out there, and we have probably close to 50 schools from the East Texas area that come to the Lear Park to run. And first off, they're very complimentary of the way it looks. But his staff goes above and beyond, asks our coaches, what do you need? How can we help you do this? Let us fill this in. We know we got a little hole down here. It may be a little too risky. They go above and beyond. So, you know, my hat's off to them. I've got nothing but great things to say to him.
I want to add to that because I was just out there. I've been out there a few weekends. I don't know if everybody in the city of Longview knows, but we have been really the mecca of state tournaments for softball and baseball. And I was out there a couple weekends ago, and there were, you know, kids that I've had at my schools that were there, and pulling up. You've got people from all over, not just Texas. I mean, all over the state. And I think it really makes you proud. I mean, I wasn't that proud of the parking when they're parking in our grass and all, but it's a packed house, and it really, I think when we go back to what we do to, you know, have something that we're proud of, but also those people have to go eat somewhere, and I think they have to spend sales tax and stay in hotels, and it's a big boost to our economy. And Lear Park is the place to be for baseball. And I think if you ask a lot of people in this part of East Texas, they'll say that Longview is the place to be. So good job, guys.
Exactly. That red number right there, John, it's a good one because you got the beds, heads in the bed and the butts in the seats in these restaurants and all. And I appreciate it. My last question, it kind of come off of something that you asked, Ray, here. So state of Texas, we rank 47th in what we're sending and to the state versus what we're getting to keep off of our tax revenues. If the state, and this is, like I said, this is a state level question, but it's just for me, if we were up to about 25, do you have any idea what that number would look like, what we would be keeping here in Longview?
I do not. I took that statistic. So there's a Texas Town and Country magazine, and I think I provided some copies to you guys at your orientations, and it just shows that the one thing that the state of Texas allows municipalities to leverage to obtain revenue is property tax. There's nothing beyond that. We don't have additional levers. Sure, we have fees and fines and things like that, or usage fees or member fees, but those are things that people to some degree are already paying for as part of their tax bill. And so it just shows the constraints. Property taxes are what we're given statutorily to assess, and that's not a positive thing.
Right.
It's not received well, but that is
Right.
what we're given.
Well, if Jay Dean's listening, I appreciate the $3 million, but we do need a little
Absolutely.
help at the state level, so.
Good. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of overview. So, listen to everything you said. You're requesting a water increase, a property tax increase, a health premium increase for the city employees, an increase in sanitation, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Those are the increases that are part of the budget.
Okay, and so do we know what the health, can I get what the health premiums are now and what y'all are suggesting them to be?
We can get that. The self-insured fund is actually run by a board of trustees, and they set those rates annually, but we can get you what they set the rates at.
And so I didn't hear anything about the roads or CIP or anything like that. Is that gonna be?
The CIP will be brought forward, I think, at the September meeting. The roads budget will be detailed in the budget books and the amounts given, and they were in accordance with the pavement policy. I don't think they were reduced any. They were actually what the pavement policy said we needed to reinvest this year, so.
But
And
one thing
then-
we did talk about is doing a one-time expenditure for some roads, so that would not be included.
No, it would not be.
And so I guess did y'all look at the impact it would be like with this increase, on for as like the retirement and the pensions? What that impact, what those increases would, how that would impact them?
They'll do that on the actuarial study as they come into effect. So like the actuary next year would include the additional pay increases there.
All right, I guess we'll have more questions once we get a overview with the book.
Sure.
So a few questions. Since this is Parks and Rec Day, so gonna add a couple things on that. So my kids, no, John, you can sit down. My kids, we went every day, like during the summer for July. They've been asking to go to Kidsview Park, so we've been there 3 times this past couple weeks. So enjoying that. And then also the council has approved in regards to the universal rec fees. We've reduced those drastically for the Longview citizens. And so I don't want to forget the fact that we have already did that. So that's also awesome work for Parks and Rec. So my other 2 questions is this 2.3 cent tax rate increase. How much additional revenue does that bring?
I can do the math in my head. What's the 2.3? I'm doing it in my head. Angela, help me out.
It is almost 2 million, it's 1.9.
1.9 million? And then what is the cost for the 6% pay increase plus the 1,000?
It's going to be about 4.5
So 4.5 million? And then,
for general
so
fund.
the tax increase that we're proposing will increase the revenue 1.9 million, but we're going to use part of the budget process is what we're talking is we understand it as we do now. 6% pay increase plus $1,000 is 4.5 million. So we're taking basically taking the money that we're getting and doubling it to help the City of Longview employees, right?
And that is what, in part, my initial message was. It's the directors did a lot of the hard work, and I can't say that enough, which is there was so much participation, and they came forward with every cut that would not affect services to the residents. So I think that's important. We didn't leave a cut on the table if it wouldn't affect service cuts to the residents. And so they're the ones that helped close that gap. And then in the last 3 weeks, we scratched and chiseled to get it a little closer to make sure we were recommending as fiscally a conservative budget as we could to accommodate these raises.
So my last point on that, to go to that, so based on just the budget, without considering any pay increases, we would actually be able to reduce the tax rate by 2.5 cents, probably, based on the ability of y'all managing the budget more efficiently, or finding ways to get more out of the what y'all are spending out of that for us. So I just want to point that out. So I think that's pretty good. Thank you.
Good. Okay, Mr. Conley?
Just follow up on 2 things, and I do appreciate Mr. Newstead's question. There's I was looking at, in that, as you guys were doing your research, and we moved from the 6.5% down to 6%, because biggest thing that we want to do is we want to take care of our employees, but we also have to take care of our taxpayers, and the balance of how much can we give raises without increasing taxes. So when we moved from 6.5 down to 6, and we went from 5 cents to 2.3, and I appreciate, we just went over the increase there of how much that's going to generate and how much it costs for raises. I guess my question is, could we explore how we get both a raise and no tax rate increase? Because if we move down from 6%, just like John just mentioned, and how much, without raising taxes, what could we give as far as and still give a percent raise, but maybe less than 6%?
I did, but the fact that our pay is so far behind due to the pay increase that we did not do last year and the pay increase that we did not do before we started the budget process, I actually said, where are we at? And my calculation, just on the back of a napkin, which I have a pretty good feel for numbers, we were more than 9% behind on average. And that's where we're at. We're more than 9%, and we have the numbers we can share with council, so we're starting to, if we're going to recruit and retain into leadership positions in the future, we've got to pay competitively to make sure we've got the cream of the crop to move up into those next. We could do a raise. That's not what I proposed. And the reason I didn't was because we are falling further and further behind. If you look at the cost of living raise last year, if you consider the consumer price index or inflation, we were over 3%. we're going to still be around 3%, and those pressures, we're having a tough time filling some of those and retaining some of those low-wage earners. So, yes, we could do some. I did not look into that.
Yeah, and if you don't, I mean, like you just mentioned, if we don't mind when we just move into discussions, if we could see some of those, that 9% that you're mentioning, that
Sure.
you could bring that. And then, I guess, you know, I understand, we definitely want to retain people. We want to do what we can to compensate our people to what they deserve, but we also, cost of living affects taxpayers too. And so, all our taxpayers trying to do what we can to make sure we don't increase. I do want to go back to one point from Mr. Wade. I love how he brought up that 5 to 7 time, and I want to go back to my suggestion. Maybe would it be like if we had a retention after 5 years, some kind of, you know, I don't know the term you used. What did you use? That was pretty good.
Service contribution.
Yeah, so 5 years service, but that way, people maybe we retain some people that are considering a change. And then I'm sorry, I have one more question, and because I'm new to this as far as our bond history and our tax increase history. So can we kind of give me? I know we had a bond, and the big bond was 2018.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned one in 2022.
22.
And are those the most recent bonds? And then
Yes, sir.
we didn't do the tax rate increase last year, but what would be the last time we have had a tax rate increase?
It would be 2023.
Voter approved, though. Are
Correct.
you asking for
Vote-
non-voter
yeah,
approved?
voter approved. I'm asking for
Okay.
voter approved.
Uh,
Would that be 2023?
Yeah, with the
Okay.
bond. But yeah, before that, the city approved been a while. I don't know the answer to that one.
I don't either. It's not on this chart, so it's before 2015. But again, in respectfully, the rules of tax rate have changed so substantially since 2019 and 2017 on. It's not accurate to compare oranges to the way things were legislated before, because they are extremely different in how cities are constrained now compared to what they were before.
And I do echo, I know you're, appreciate all you guys that are working through these finances. I know, and you mentioned the 47th, the estimates are for public education to be 45th. So I know it's, like Mr. Barry Hill said, Jay, if you're listening, hey, thanks for the $3 million, but we could use every bit we can to help. So,
Sure.
thanks for answering my questions.
Yes, sir.
Shannon, do you have something?
Yeah, just one last thing. So we did give, you did give a few raises mid-budget year, correct? And so when we do this pay increase, they'll get another raise on top of that?
No, we're only bringing employees' raise up to 6% plus 1,000. So anybody that received any adjustment beyond that or was hired beyond that would not receive any adjustment.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Allen.
What you just said, in other words, there's step raises in all of these jobs.
No, sir. Only in police and fire.
In other words, if I'm in the sanitation department and I've been there 10 years, I make the same thing I made when I started?
Yes, sir.
Are you serious?
Yes, sir. Until adjustments are approved by city council.
Good. All right. When the rank 47th, that's hard to believe, but anyway, we rank 47th. The state of Texas, my opinion is, they said, well, you municipalities, y'all are on your own. In other words, you can do property taxes, but don't look for us for money, because we're not going to give it to you, unless we do a special like a swimming pool or something. So the 47th ranking just means that we're on our own. In other words, we're not going to, we're going to remove you,
Yes,
what
sir.
is-
And to be fair, it's not a change in how, it's always been that way. So while I've
Oh,
talked
yeah,
about
yeah,
the rules
yeah,
of the
yeah.
game changing in the last 6 years, that part has never
Yeah.
changed.
All right.
Mr. McPhee, that's just the state of Texas's support for its municipalities statewide.
Yes.
On a national level,
Yes, sir.
Texas ranks 47th.
we're just 3 from the bottom.
Yeah, so
We're 3 from
basically,
those who
the
get
state of
the
Texas
least.
says, yeah, we don't care about you guys. And
Yeah,
how we
you're on your own,
support you.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
get your money.
As
Yeah.
long as we
Now,
get your
what-
money. And then
what-
other states will say, hey, you know, we're all in this together. So what
right.
the state does, the municipalities should be able to do as well,
All right.
and or benefit from.
What is the sales tax rate that we're paying? Is it 8.5, 8 3/4?
8 1/4.
8 1/4, okay. Of that 8 1/4, just in simplified terms, 8 1/4 cents on the dollar. How much of that goes, I think in the city of Longview, we get, do we have any, a certain amount goes to Ledco, a percentage?
Those aren't included in these figures because they're specifically allocated for economic
All
development.
right, what about the drainage?
That's included in these sales tax numbers I have. So we
Okay.
have about 1.5%, is that?
Well, let's talk cents.
Yes, 1.5 cents on the dollar sales tax rate, 1/4 cent, which is the additional quarter of a penny, goes to Leadco. The remaining half goes to Gregg County. And so that's.
Wait a minute. Okay, we get 1.5 cents. If you spend $1 with us, the city gets 1.5 cents.
Yes, sir.
How much of that, does any of that 1.5 cent go to the drainage fund?
1/4 cent.
Quarter, okay, so we're getting 1.5 including the drainage. And
Yes, sir.
Ledco is
Separate from that.
separate, okay.
Yes,
All
sir.
right, okay. All right, is there a cap on the sales tax? Is there a state cap on the sales tax?
Yes, sir. We are currently, everyone together is at the cap.
Okay, so there's no way to raise the sales tax? I mean, that's at the
No,
cap?
sir.
All right. The reason I was asking, my wife's brother lives in Tennessee, and I think their sales tax is 9.5, but their property taxes are considerably less. But we're limited what we can do on that. Okay. That's it. The pay, no, that's hard to believe that a guy starts here and he works 10 years and he doesn't get a pay. I mean, I don't know how we keep anybody.
You can approve it.
Yeah, that's right.
Well,
You can vote for that.
This is how they get a raise.
okay, I think, well, my lord, the 6%'s nothing. I mean, it needs to be, anyway, I know it's, but that's, the 6% is absolutely minimum. One thing on this $1,000, and maybe somebody brought this up earlier, could we give it to them in December is a little bit of a,
Mr. Berryhill brought it up, yep. We're gonna look at it.
Instead of doing it little every month, just kind of like a income tax rebate or something. It wouldn't be, but I'm comparing, if we could give it to them in December, I think it would mean more to them
We're gonna look at it.
Sure.
than it would. I think one thing you mentioned, this meals with managers. I think that's an excellent idea on that. One thing that bothers me, and I don't know what's wrong, the sales tax comparisons over the years, there's a lot more traffic. The population seems to be going up. Where are they spending the money? Why aren't we? I understand if you're on Amazon and a package comes to your house, we still get our 1.5 cents on that Amazon.
We get a portion of that sales tax.
It's
But-
not the full 8.5,
No, it is not.
but we do
Angela
get.
can do, we get a portion, but it's a reduced portion. Shop local is the bottom line to answer
So if
that.
you order Amazon, the city gets less money
Yes, sir.
than you would if you buy it local.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, if the destination's here in town, I mean, if it comes to you, all right. Now on the Gap and the Dollar General, on products that are sold out of this store, do we get some sales tax revenue on that?
Yes, we do. And part of the economic incentive agreement with Gap in particular was rebating some of that sales tax depending on how much volume they created for us. But when we start talking about that and examining that, the other thing that you need to remember is they hire a lot of people.
Oh, I'm not
And so
complaining. I'm
there's
just
that
saying we
economic
do
impact.
get, we do.
But we do have to rebate that, just like we have to rebate we
All
have
of it or
abatements
just part
on
of
the-
it?
A portion of it. It's a
Okay.
sliding scale.
All right. Christmas, sales tax cap, 1.5 cent. I don't know, y'all need to spend more money.
Oh, he doesn't mean the city, he means the.
No, 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 you people out there, not here.
Shop
You
local.
people
That
out
would
there.
be the-
You need, I mean, this just amazes me that our sales tax revenue is really run comparable over the last 3 years. And I know there's more people on the streets, there's more traffic, there's more, and I don't know where they're spending the money.
Our biggest city tax generating avenue is the hotel entertainment.
Yeah, but it's set aside. It's not part of this 1.5.
I get it, but I'm saying as far as our overall city revenue, one of our city tax revenue streams, that we could continue to look in other ways.
Is
to
it in
generate
this,
to
is
increase
it in
that.
here?
Yeah.
It will be in the book that we provide to you
But
guys.
it has to be spent on specific
On
things.
specific
It's
things,
not
but it
general.
spurs other things as well.
But it's not
is
general.
To his point, it
All right.
spurs other things.
I'll be through in just a minute. The general fund, 24-25, you got 101,379. 25-26, you got 100 million. So you've actually reduced the general fund expenditure.
Actually, the 101 reflects, so last year was a balanced budget, but some of the work we had proposed to end in the last year or the prior year for fiscal year '23, when we don't get that work complete for whatever reason, whether your equipment's not here, those roll over as a part, that's part of the
Okay.
charter and how they roll over. And then when we spend funds out of fund balance or allocate them, those count as expenditures. So budget to budget, they're not the same, but there are a number of reasons they're not the same.
Okay, well, I'm looking at the next enterprise funds. What are, give me a definition of simple.
Those are our utility funds, our sanitation, water, and sewer.
Okay,
That
what
is
they-
a GASB term, if I'm correct. Thank you, Angela, for educating me. The GASB term for enterprise funds that can't be made for a profit, they have to recover the cost of the service. That's what those are, that's what those are.
Okay, y'all just need, we don't have the money because y'all are not spending it.
Right, that's correct.
So spend some money. All right.
I just want to point out, like, so there's estimating the COLA increases for '26 to be 2.6 to 2.7% are the estimates. And so we're looking at, 6% plus 1,000. So we're higher than the normal COLA increase, but this is because we're playing catch up
Yes, sir.
due to not doing it last year and then just being behind in general. So I just want to make sure that we do that.
Sure, go for it.
One more thing. So you said, you just made a statement a while ago that you said that, that the only way that they could get raises is through council, correct? Is that what you said? The
Yes,
employees?
or administrative adjustments that I make from time to time for reorganizations or moving people from time to time. That is
Okay.
correct.
So my question is, when you did give those other raises, were they already budgeted, like, in the cost of those departments in the administration already?
They are within the year-end estimates that we have. I don't have those exact figures. We can look at that, but they're within the year-end estimate that this budget is based on.
Okay, so yeah, I would like to look at that.
Sure.
Okay, I have just a couple of comments. I agree with Mr. Allen that 6% raises to employees should be the minimum that we discuss. I think that just covers a cost of living from last year and a cost of living this year, and I would love to do more, to be honest, but to me, that is the minimum. I do not think we should go down. I really, really appreciate those conversations, though. I think it is certainly possible for council to disagree about the priority that giving city staff raises is a huge priority, and I'm glad to be having this conversation again this year, so I just want to say thank you. I'm glad that we're doing that. I support the pay raises as they've been presented. I support the necessary tax rate change that it would require, because I understand that has to happen to make that happen. And then, and I did want to talk about the one-time expenses. Last time we had the discussion about the 15% reserves, I told Roland, we're just gonna shift all that to after budget. So we'll come back and talk about general fund things, but that would be 15% reserves, and maybe some road projects. Dwayne's putting together something we could consider, but that would be one-time things to just give a shot in the arm to our road maintenance system, and then the fire leases. So expecting those to maybe, we'll have a meeting, and I don't have a time for that, but we'll come back after the budget for that. Are we done on discussion? Everybody good? Okay. Yeah. Okay, if you will pull up the slide on the next, I have one more thing. I'm so sorry, Angela. Budget item B, consider a resolution establishing the date, time, and place for a public hearing on the proposed 25-26 budget. Miss Angela Cohen, our Director of Finance.
Thank you. State statute requires that a public hearing be held on the annual proposed budget. That public hearing will be held August 21st at 5:30 here at City Hall in the council chambers. And this does require a vote for the
Okay.
resolution.
Can I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve on that date, August 21st, 2025, at 5:30 PM. We have a public hearing on the proposed FY 25 to 26 budget.
Thank you, Mr. Ray Wade. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution is approved. Before we adjourn, we do not have council items tonight, but if you'll pull up the budget calendar, I just wanted to point out when our next meetings are that we will be discussing the budget at. Next Thursday, the 24th, is our regular meeting, but we will also be discussing the budget. Then again, on Tuesday, August 5th, Thursday, August 14th, and then, as we've just indicated, Thursday, August 21st. Anyway, you can all read the budget calendar, but I wanted to point that out. We'll have lots of further discussion on that for those that are interested. And I did also want to give just a brief thank you to our fire personnel that have been serving in the Hill Country over the past couple of weeks. We're very grateful for their service and proud of that contribution to our state disaster. Those individuals returned home today, and we're glad for them to be back with their families, and we'll have an opportunity to celebrate them as a community coming up in the next couple of weeks. So just want to thank them for all that they've done and all the training that they put in to be able to do that. Chief Grimes will be hosting a Meet the Chief event on July 31st at the Fire Training Center, so we're excited about that. Come on out and meet our new fire chief. Jumped in, boots on the ground, and started working, so we're excited about that. Also, just want to thank both PD and our fire department for handling a train derailment downtown that had no injuries but had a great big traffic diversion, so thank you guys for that. And with that, we are adjourned. We'll see everybody next week.